Dear friends, today the story we're going to tell you is that of a cruel woman whose story will make your soul shiver. A divine punishment fell on her, transforming her into Annis. But what was this sin so serious that such a punishment was worth it? Listen to this story from start to finish in order to learn a lesson. In a remote village lived a pious man named Hakim. He was a humble butcher, a blessed being by fate, because from his youngest age he was counted among the privileged servants of God. His wife, Sappho, were as virtuous as he was. Together, they dedicated their existence to prayer and devotion. One day, a great news illuminated their home. Sappho was going to become a mother. Time passed, and finally, God gave them a son as radiant as the moon. Their happiness was limitless, but a misfortune did not take long to darken their joy. Since the birth of their son, Sappho fell ill. Despite many care, she ended up leaving this world, leaving Hakim in pain. Despite his sadness, he had no choice but to give up on his son's needs. He continued to cut wood in the forest, taking care of his child alone. Having a few goats, he took them to graze them every day, carrying his son with him. When the little one was hungry, he fed him with the milk of his goats, cleaned it, then made him sleep in the shade of a tree while these beasts were grazing. The days went by like this, until his son became a young man. Hakim, seeing that it was time, thought that a marriage would bring a balance to their home. A wife would be able to take care of household chores, and he could fully devote himself to prayer without distraction. What he didn't know was that this marriage would change his life in the worst possible way. Thus, the marriage was celebrated. Hakim gave a room to his son and his beautiful daughter, while he left for the other room to continue his prayers. The son, now working in the fields, said to his wife, "Take good care of my father. He has watched over me all my life. It is our duty to take care of him now. Above all, never interrupt his prayers, because he is a deeply pious man." And the first days she took care of the house, preparing meals and taking care of the house. Hakim was deeply grateful to her, thanking God for this blessing. He then said, "From now on I can devote myself entirely to prayer." One morning, after having accomplished his ablutions, he took his chapel and the holy book, then went into the forest with his goats, as usual. But when he came back in the evening with his wood and his animals, he made a disturbing discovery. When he returned home, he noticed that his beautiful daughter had not yet left her room and that nothing had been prepared for dinner. Hakim thought as soon as possible that maybe his beautiful daughter was feeling unwell. Worried, he wanted to prepare the meal himself. He kneaded the dough, made the pancakes cook, and put the food on the fire. After having finished everything, he returned to his prayers. In the evening, when her daughter-in-law finally emerged from her room, she was amazed to see that all the work had already been done. The house was clean and the meal was ready. A smile of satisfaction stretched across her lips. From that day on, she decided to adopt this strategy, pretending to be ill to avoid household chores. He took care of the house every day and continued to pray without respite. He grew increasingly tired. His nights were short and he began to fall ill. One night, absorbed in his prayers, he stayed awake until dawn and performed the prayer of Tahajjud, then the one of the wolf. After reciting the holy book for a long time, he headed towards the forest with his goats. When he returned, his beautiful daughter did not leave his room. Thinking that she was still suffering, he resumed his habit, prepared the meal, and did the household chores. Then he left again with his goats. One day, his son said to him, "Father, you should no longer take the goats into the forest. Stop cutting wood. It is no longer necessary that you go out every day. Stay at home and devote yourself entirely to your prayers." But Hakim replied softly, "My son, taking care of the goats is a sacred tradition, and doing one's own household chores is also a prophetic tradition. That's why I want to do everything myself." His son insisted, "No, father, your hands are too tired. It used to be out of necessity, but that's no longer the case. Home affairs are now my wife's business, and outside tasks are my responsibility. You rest and pray. If you need anything, I'll bring it to you." The son went to work in the field. Hakim, obeying his request, settled down in his room and continued his prayers. After a while, he lay down a little on his bed to rest. It was then that his beautiful daughter suddenly entered the room. "Get up," she cried. "You've slept enough. Go out and do the cleaning that will take care of it. I'm tired of waiting for this old man to get up and get to work." Hakim slowly and painfully got up. He walked slowly outside, but his beautiful daughter followed him, screaming even louder, cleaning the entire sink. Then he went to the toilet and washed the floor. How long are we going to live on our hooks without doing anything? After washing the utensils in silence, he saw his beautiful daughter put a bucket of water in front of him. Now he washes his clothes and dries them. He started washing his clothes, but while he was only half done, the call for the prayer of dole came back. Immediately, Hakim stopped his work to go do his ablutions, but when he took his prayer mat and put it on the ground, his beautiful, furious daughter grabbed it and threw it away. "What is this mania? You always leave your work to sit on this mat. Your bed smells bad all the time." When Hakim took his prayer mat and put it back in place, his beautiful, furious daughter walked on it. Then she violently grabbed his arm and forced him to wash the laundry immediately. After finishing this task, he finally thought of catching up on his missing prayer. But his beautiful daughter came back to the cart. "I used to drink fresh milk tea every afternoon. Since I've been here, I don't even have the right to that." Then she added the despicable tone. "Listen carefully now. As soon as your son starts working, you will do all the work of this house yourself. I am not your father's servant to take care of you." The poor Hakim ended up doing all the domestic tasks, while trying to devote himself discreetly to his prayers. He spent his days working, his nights praying, and his sleep was seriously suffering. After 3 days of this slow rhythm, he fell ill. Yet, even weakened, he continued to pray without rest. He spent another night in prayer, recited the Koran until dawn, then performed the ablutions and prayers of dawn. The third day, while he was washing the dishes, his hands began to tremble. The plates escaped him, and he had trouble cleaning them well. Seeing this, his beautiful daughter entered into a terrible rage. She grabbed a bowl and threw it on his hands. "Start over from the beginning. We are not animals to eat in dirty plates." Despite her weakness, Hakim gathered the utensils and started cleaning again, but suddenly, caught in a tangle, he lost balance and collapsed directly on the plates. His beautiful daughter, instead of worrying, pushed him from the foot to wake him up. "Come on, get up. Stop pretending." But he didn't move. Frustrated, she raised her shoulders and returned to her room, leaving him there, lying on the ground. A few moments later, when she heard the door open, she rushed outside, pretending to be worried, but it was too late. Her husband had just arrived. Seeing his father lying on the ground, he ran towards him, panicking. "Father, what happened? Why are you lying next to the sink? You were cleaning. Look, your hands are full of soap." His wife, feigning innocence, immediately replied, "Oh, I didn't ask him anything. You know your father. He has always had this habit of wanting to do everything himself. Now, instead of wasting time talking, take him to the doctor." His worried son took his father to the village healer. After examining him, the latter told him that he was very weak. His diet must be watched closely. He needs rest because his lack of sleep has weakened him a lot. If Hakim had wanted it, he could have told his son everything, but he was a pious man and did not want to cause trouble in his home. The next day, when his son went back to the field, his beautiful daughter suddenly entered the room. Standing, "Old man, how long have you been pretending? Look at all this filth, and you are there, lying down as if everything was fine." Hakim, pronouncing the name of God, got up with difficulty. Barely standing, he began to vomit all his violence. Each breath cost him a huge effort. He thought, Maybe a little tea will relieve my throat before I start my tasks. But as he grabbed a pot to heat water, his beautiful daughter emerged, a ballad in hand. No, first of all, you clean the house, she ordered dry. Weakened by his illness, it took him 2 hours to clean up a small part of the body. He thought, with a little breath, that his tasks would never end. It's better that I start by reciting the holy book. He took courage in both hands and prepared for his ablutions. His fingers trembled when he opened the Koran and began reciting, but he had barely started until his beautiful daughter saw him. Furious, she approached him by swinging his broom and hit him brutally. He remained silent, continuing his reading despite the pain. She hit him 3 times on the tears were falling on his laughing face. Finally, he closed his mouth and got up painfully. My daughter, I have no strength to do these tasks anymore. All my life I worked, but today my body is worn out. I can't do it anymore. His beautiful, merciless daughter burst into laughter. Oh well, but when the call to prayer is heard, you suddenly find all the energy you need to pray. Listen to me, old man. If I see you still lying in this house, I'll throw you out. You have no idea how much it costs us, between your food and your medicine. Then, a more threatening tone, and never tell you anything to your son. Otherwise, I will destroy his home. The old man remained silent, lowering his eyes. He got up and slowly began to clean the whole house, despite his high breathing. After hours of effort, he returned to his room to look for his medicine. But as he took a glass of water to swallow his compressions, his beautiful daughter approached him. He tore the box of his hands and threw it in the trash. You are not ready to die so quickly, he said. With all his might, Hakim finished the cleaning despite everything. The night came. He could only pray, while hiding from his beautiful daughter. He said goodbye in the darkness, tears in his eyes. Oh, my lord, my heart tells me to run away from this house, because I can no longer worship you here. Sitting on his carpet, he spent the whole night in tears, unable to find sleep. At the time of Tahajjud's prayer, he made his decision. He picked up his mat, his hat, and his crown. Then he silently left the house. He walked without a stop, not letting nature guide him. The call to prayer in the morning resounded in the air. He was still moving forward, not knowing where he was going. The cool wind caressed his tired face, and he seemed to hear the birds and trees singing the glory of God. He continued to walk, lost in his thoughts, until he reached a tree. There, he put his mat of prayer and plunged into the worship of God. Suddenly, he heard a child cry out loud, as if he were suffering from great pain. Intrigued, he opened his eyes and saw a man running with a child in his arms. Hakim rushed towards him and asked, "Why is this child crying like that?" The man, panicked by the suffering of his son, did not pay attention to anything else. He desperately sought a healer to soothe the pain of his child. Seeing his despair, Hakim asked him to calm down. The boy sat down, then recited sacred verses, slowly blowing on the boy's leg. Instantly, the child stopped crying and found his calm. Surprised and grateful, the man asked, "Who are you? Where are you going?" "I am a simple servant of God, came to the forest to pray," replied humbly Hakim. The man insisted, "No, you can't stay here. Come to my house. I will take good care of you." Despite his reluctance, Hakim eventually accepted the invitation and followed this man to his house. In the house lived also the sister of the man, a young pious woman who aspired to learn religion and spread the divine word. With tenderness and respect, she brought a meal to Hakim, who in return put a benevolent hand on her head before eating. The young woman spent more and more time on her side, learning the sacred teachings and reciting the Koran. Little by little, she became a fervent worshiper of God. Although modest, the house of this man breathed serenity. They had only 2 goats, but since the arrival of Hakim, their number had continued to increase. A true blessing had fallen on the house. Every day, the man offered fresh milk to Hakim, allowing him to gradually regain his strength. When the villagers of the village learned of the existence of this holy man, they flowed towards him, convinced that he had a divine gift. However, Hakim did not consider himself a healer. He was simply a humble servant of God, to whom the threesome had granted the blessing of healing through his prayers. The villagers showed him immense respect, and the prosperity of his host had increased considerably since his arrival. Hakim was finally happy. His health improved, and he could fully devote himself to his devotion. Pain persisted in his heart. His son missed him terribly. He often wondered how he lived with this cruel woman. On his side, his son was inconsolable. He spent days and nights looking for his father, exhausted and overwhelmed by worry. Not finding rest, he neglected his work in the fields. During this time, his wife was rejoicing. Finally, we are rid of this old woman. But what she did not know is that this happiness would only last for a short time. When the harvest time came, the harvest was disastrous. A large part of the crops had been destroyed, causing considerable losses. Several goats ceased to produce milk, while others, sick, perished. Faced with this critical situation, the attitude of the beautiful girl changed. She revealed her true face to her husband. She became irritable, spending her time complaining and arguing with him. When he didn't go to work in the fields, she blamed him, treating him as incapable. Worse still, she even refused him a decent meal. She, on the other hand, continued to enjoy succulent dishes, while he had only the right to the rest, which she threw negligently in front of him. The poor man, naive, thought that the house lacked provisions and that their precarious situation forced them to eat dry bread and water. But through his wife's attitude, he understood that his father had left because of her. My father prayed at home, and thanks to him, God blessed us with his grace. Since he left, prosperity has disappeared with him. Leaving the house little by little, he devoted himself to the trade of goats and spent several days away from home. One day, during a trip, he arrived in a region where a merchant sold magnificent goats. He was struck by their resemblance to the one his father had. As he negotiated the transaction, his gaze was attracted by a humble cabin with a remarkable appearance. From the outside, it seemed to be a mosque. Curious, he asked the merchant, "Who lives in this cabin?" The man replied, "A servant of God lives there. It is a holy man whose prayers bring healing to the sick and prosperity to those who welcome him. Since his arrival here, this place has become blessed. People come from afar to meet him." Intrigued, he exclaimed, "Can I see him? I have a burning desire to meet him." The merchant answered, "For this you will have to wait a little. At this moment he is in prayer." He returned after the prayer of the afternoon. Impatient, he sat under a tree, patiently waiting for the moment of the meeting. When the call to prayer of the afternoon came, they performed their prayers together, then returned to sit under the tree. A few moments later, the door of the cabin opened.